Just tried to bar President Trump from the Colorado ballot using an unconstitutional maneuver that is a bastardization of the 14th Amendment to our U.S. Constitution. This was a provision, Section 3, that was designed to bar Confederate members, people who switched to the Confederacy, from actually being able to serve. That's very different than what's at issue here, to say the least. This is a hollowed out husk of what the country was built on. The basic principle that we, the people, select our leadership, not the unelected elite class in the back of palace halls. That's old world Europe, not the United States. That's why I'm making a pledge today that I will withdraw. I pledge to withdraw from the Colorado GOP primary ballot unless and until Trump's name is restored. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie and Nikki Haley do the same thing, or else these Republicans are simply complicit in this unconstitutional attack on the way we conduct our constitutional republic. I refuse to be complicit in that. I think what they're doing is wrong, and I think it's up to Republicans to step up and stand up with a spine for our country's future. That's really what's at stake, whether we, the people, actually have a say in deciding who leads this country. Yes, it would be easier for other Republicans like me who are running in this race to say, hey, if Trump is sidelined, there's our opportunity. No doubt other candidates are probably privately celebrating with their corporate sponsors. That's not the right thing to do. I think the most useful thing that every GOP candidate can do right now is to join me in that pledge. I'll say that I will withdraw from that Colorado GOP primary ballot until Trump's name is restored. This belongs to the people, not to the unelected Democratic cabal of judges in Colorado or any other state. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley and Chris Christie do the same thing, or else they're complicit in what this security state is trying to do to shut down Trump. I stand by that, and I expect them to do the right thing.
New Hampshire, Chris Christie, not exactly a fan of Donald Trump, gave his first take on the Colorado Supreme Court's decision to ban Trump from running.
I do not believe Donald Trump should be prevented from being president of the United States by any court. I think he should be prevented from being president of the United States by the voters of this country. I think this is probably premature and jumping ahead of it, and I think it would cause a lot of anger in this country if people had the choice taken away from them.
What you're seeing the left do is they will use the power of the state to advance their agenda. And you see that with the Colorado Supreme Court. I mean, look, if somebody's convicted or something of some of these things, there was no trial on any of this. They basically just said, what, you can't be on the ballot? I mean, how does that work? What's the limiting principle for that? Why could we just say that Biden can't be on the ballot because he let in 8 million illegals into the country and violated the Constitution, which he has? Could we just say, oh, well, they have money coming to Hunter, whatever? So I think the U.S. Supreme Court is going to reverse that. But here's the larger thing of what the left and the media and the Democrats are doing. They're doing all this stuff to basically solidify support in the primary for him, get him into the general, and the whole general election is going to be all this legal stuff. And look, it's unfair. They're abusing power 100%. But the question is that going to work?
Pay attention and listen, because Colorado Supreme Court just removed Donald Trump from the 2024 ballot.
It's no wonder crooked Joe Biden and the far-left lunatics are desperate to stop us by any means necessary. They are willing to violate the U.S. Constitution at levels never seen before in order to win this election. Joe Biden is a threat to democracy. It's a threat. They're weaponizing law enforcement for high-level election interference because we're beating them so badly in the polls.
Quick prediction. If they really do go through with this, I believe there will be a civil war that will break out.
So, it seems that the chances of civil war in America just rose somewhat dramatically. On Tuesday evening, the Supreme Court of Colorado ruled that President Donald J. Trump had to be removed from the state ballot for both the primaries and the general election. They cited Amendment 14, Section 3 of the Constitution of the United States. That section reads, quote, "No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability." That's what the section says. The case made by the 4-3 Colorado majority in favor of barring President Trump from the ballot is simple. They say Trump tried to conduct an insurrection in their judgment and thus can be barred from the ballot by their say-so. The court says, quote, Congress does not need to pass implementing legislation for Section 3's disqualification provision to attach. They say that Section 3 is, in that sense, self-executing. In other words, so long as Section 3 says insurrectionists are disqualified from office, this means that Congress doesn't actually need to define what it means to be an insurrectionist. Any state court can do that. What's more, the state court says the Constitution authorizes states to determine, quote, the constitutional qualifications of presidential candidates, because otherwise states would be unable to exclude a 28-year-old, a non-resident of the United States, or even a foreign national from the presidential primary ballot in Colorado. The court says it is qualified to determine who is guilty of insurrection under the 14th Amendment without any criminal case or any impeachment case or any piece of congressional legislation. The court says that, quote, the events of January 6th constituted an insurrection, and President Trump engaged in that insurrection. The court also claims, quote, President Trump's direct and express efforts over several months exhorting his supporters to march to the Capitol to prevent what he falsely characterized as an alleged fraud on the people of this country were indisputably overt and voluntary. Moreover, the evidence amply showed that President Trump undertook all these actions to aid and further a common unlawful purpose that he himself conceived and set in motion, preventing Congress from certifying the 2020 presidential election and stop the peaceful transfer of power. This reading is, to put it mildly, incredibly strained. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment was designed to prohibit those who had served in the Confederacy from holding public office in the United States. The Confederacy, as we know, was an armed rebellion against the United States, which ended in the deaths of over 600,000 Americans on both sides. It was unclear when the 14th Amendment was passed whether it was designed to apply to any future rebellion or insurrection or how that would be defined, or whether it was even supposed to apply to presidential candidates or those seeking to qualify as such. The amendment says nothing about presidential candidates, you'll notice, or exactly how it would be effectuated by states, by Congress, by some other party. Kurt Lash, author of the 14th Amendment and professor of law at Richmond School of Law, writes, quote, the omission of express language on these issues is significant because prior publicly announced drafts did expressly apply to present and future rebellions, did expressly name the office of the President of the United States, and did expressly bar certain persons from either holding or qualifying for office. Well, what does all that mean? It means at the very least, the amendment didn't mean to clearly bar presidential candidates in future elections who took part in future quote-unquote insurrections. Most importantly, the amendment is totally unclear on exactly how it's supposed to be effectuated. Representative Thaddeus Stevens, one of the most radical Republicans, one of the great founders of the actual 14th Amendment, said the text would, quote, not execute itself, that Congress would have to pass laws making clear who exactly was barred from office. And historically, that's what Congress did. They generally enforced the mechanism for this provision. In 1872, for example, Congress passed what was called the Amnesty Act, which did away with penalties on former Confederates due to the 14th Amendment. And Congress did pass a law in 1994 that made it a crime to, quote, assist or engage in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States. So presumably a conviction for such a crime would automatically disqualify a candidate from office under Section 3.